Welcome to Nerdarchy. I'm Nerdarchist Ted, for Nerds by Nerds. With me is,
Nathan Nerdarch.
and today we're going to get into our Intro to D&D series with races, this time the Half-Orc. Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy. First off, I'd like to thank our excellent sponsor, Easy Roller Dice, for this video. Whether it's your first set of dice or your 100th set of dice, check out easyrollerdice.com/nerdarchy for all of your dice rolling needs. In the description below, you will find a link to Easy Roller Dice, as well as a one-time use 20% off coupon code.
All right, so today we're discussing Half-Orc, and you can find that on page 40 of your player's handbook.
Now, the Half-Orc is one of the trim races of the PHB. There's not a whole lot there. You don't even have sub-races to choose from. In the book, it says that you are descended from a human and an orc, and it's a situation where you're really born of two worlds, and you kind of have to pick where you feel like you're going to belong.
So does it get into how you go about picking that, or is it kind of...
Well, it says that most half-orcs are going to live amongst orcs, but those that decide to grow up amongst humans, you're going to wind up being you're somewhat of an outcast. You're going to be living in the slums, and those that really want to prove themselves are going to wind up finding themselves as adventurers.
And I think that the whole thing of being outcast from the normal society is because you tend to feel emotions stronger. I think as a half-orc, when you get angry, everybody knows. If you're sad, everybody knows. And, polite company doesn't like that kind of...
So, when you're...
gruffness.
When you're 6 to 7 feet tall, towering over the other races, and then someone makes you sad and you're going to bawl like a teenage girl because your emotions are so much more powerful than others, it tends to elicit, different reactions in polite society.
Really? I didn't know it was that powerful. So, and another thing is that, you're also kind of remind everybody of a work.
Right.
But all that aside...
Well, beings that you have the blood of orcs running through your veins, it actually, makes you so much more of something else. Sometimes genetics, when you combine two things together, you get something that's from neither. And that's the way kind of half-orcs fall. If you actually look at their abilities, the stuff that they get is different from orcs and humans. So it's pretty interesting.
But what they do have some things that are very similar to their orc heritage. And that is their ability scores. They're getting a +2 to strength and a +1 to constitution.
So you're stronger and hardier than other races that are out there. And that kind of goes into your size and the breeding of it.
And what about, are they more human when it comes to their age and their height?
Well, height I already went
That's
into.
right.
They're typically between 5 and 7 feet tall. And that does give an imposing look. Although they do age at a rate similar to humans, you tend to reach maturity at around 14, and lifespan of about 75 years, if you manage to actually make it that long. But your rash anger and willingness to try and prove yourself sometimes leads you down roads that kind of cut that early.
Yeah, and their human parentage, they're medium size, and they're going to have a speed of 30.
So what do you feel like marks them? I talked about their strength, but these guys come from a culture where scars are important, and it doesn't matter whether... Well, I mean, it really matters whether it's a situation of demeaning scars, things for slavery and punishment, or battle scars that are more, signs of victory and signs of, well, this is what I survived, or this is what I did. What do you feel? How does that tell to society? How does that mark them different?
Yeah, so a normal society, like an average human society, would view scars as, especially anything on the face or something like that, is probably as not beautiful, especially if they looked less like debonair and more like vicious looking, like a nasty wound
Right.
that almost killed you. They're gonna be like, oh, that must have been a terrible experience, rather than you're awesome for surviving that, and I appreciate you more, and I think highly of you because of it. So those kind of reaction, I feel like that's a guttural reaction kind of
Hmm.
feeling to it.
And that to them, like they're going to defend that kind of decision. They're going to defend that, that honor to them.
Their size, their attitude and demeanor, known for being easy to upset. I'd say that they get like they're menacing,
Hmm.
and that shows in the skill they get intimidate skill.
So while intimidate is linked as a charisma based skill, and they're not charismatic, their size and their abilities give them that natural advantage, or that natural proficiency, if you will, in intimidating people.
And they're not only intimidating in a social setting, but they're also very intimidating in combat. And there are several reasons for that.
Well, beings that they are, from the blood of orcs, they wind up possessing some of that combat ferocity, and that's denoted by their two combat abilities. Number one, their endurance during actual fights. They literally have the ability to shrug off wounds that would fell a normal person and keep fighting. And that's marked by their relentless endurance, as well as when they actually get into combat and score a critical hit. When you roll a 20 on your combat die, you actually do more damage than the average person just from your combat prowess. Because half orc is kind of, not a normal race that people are used to. Are there any instances of half orcs that people would know about?
Well, the most famous type of half orc I would say is the Uruk-hai from Tolkien's
Mm-hmm.
books, and now they were a goblin orc
Mm-hmm.
cross. But aren't orcs originally from elves anyway, and Tolkien? So it's kind of a mixed bag there. But I think they're the really great example of a half orc um, that was raised amongst orcs, or
Mm-hmm.
in that instance. So they've got that ferocity, they've got that kind of evil bent to them, like most orcs. And so I think they're a really good example. You don't get into much of the culture of them, but what they're used for and what they do,
Right.
that's kind of feels like a group of half orcs raised by orcs to me.
So sadly, there's not much other options for getting into it, because it's not a common race that people do things with in novels and what have you.
And I don't know of any good examples, like good Lee examples of half orcs, because for the most part, half orcs kind of tend to have that non good bend to them.
Right. I mean, they are naturally chaotic from being raised of two worlds. So it's a little bit challenging. Also, diving into their emotions as much as they do, that does lean toward that chaotic alignment bent as well.
And their orcish heritage.
And of course.
All add to that. Um,
So where do you feel half orc leans as far as classes?
I would say any of the warrior classes are going to be a safe bet. Anything that's going to rely on its natural strength or hardiness is a good way to go.
So
Um,
that's going to be your fighter, your barbarian, your ranger, and your paladin. That's
yes.
going to heavily rely on that high strength score. So like you could
Um,
also get into like a war priest and not really care as much about your wisdom score for saving throws. You could literally be like, all right, well, I'm gonna go into the thick of things and fight, calling upon that half orc heritage, and your skill in battle is gonna make for a pretty intimidating cleric. And then on top of that, if you wanted to do a strength based monk, that's also going to do fairly well, as you relying on the extra hit points from your constitution bump, as well as being able to punch that much harder.
and those are just the optimal choices. Really, half orc can be any class, and I think they make really good thematic sorcerers and warlocks.
So you can play, as always, anything that you like. If there's anything that You have questions on in regards to half orcs, either ourselves or one of our awesome fans, we'll be more than willing to help you out if you post your questions and comments down below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You know, check us out over on nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
Stay
stay
nerdy.
nerdy.